Hey everybody, it's another Thomas Mooneygo live stream. I'm giving this another shot to see how this works. I'm also trying to learn some other software options, but until then, this is me. So I took most of the day to myself today. I didn't turn on the computer until after I'd had my dinner, which actually I think was a good thing. I'm very grateful that we have the technology that we need in this time so that we can connect with others. Um, but I don't know about you, but I feel a little bit overwhelmed uh, just by everything in the different news feeds and streams on Facebook. It can be overwhelming and very disheartening considering what's going on. So I sort of took today and just did some tasks around the house, and then also practiced some Tai Chi and Qigong, and did some shamanic work. So I did a couple shamanic journeys and some meditative work and some craft projects as well. Hey, there's Atreides Duncan. Hi, how you doing? um, and I didn't even really call anybody or speak to anyone until, like I said, this evening, except for, of course, people in the house, but, and, took a long walk with the dog. Um, you're blessed. I'm glad to see that you're blessed. Good. Um, it's been very challenging, I would say, to stay centered and focused amidst everything. And, you know, it's so easy to be pulled out of the self. And I find that the computer is wonderful for connecting, and it's also wonderful for pulling me out of myself or out of my center as well. So I had it turned off until this evening, and I'm going to probably be doing that, if not that extreme, but having it off, and except when I'm using it for something to communicate with particular people. And also, I've been this evening been looking into streaming software because I want to offer more things than just me speaking. I've been live streaming on Facebook for one of the places that I work in their group, some of my Tai Chi classes. And I would really like to do like a short or, one couple of Qigong things, um, on a semi regular basis. And while I'm not teaching, um, I really miss, for those of you who don't know, that besides my business side, I also teach Tai Chi and I'm getting trained in Qigong, or have been getting trained in Qigong until, this happened. Um, and that's sort of my day job, as it were. But it really, I feel like it knits in really well. But anyway, today was a quiet day for me. So I spent most of the day with an inward focus. I did some shamanic journey work, and I did several journeys. I'm going to do another one before I go to bed. In the past few days, I've also gone back to a full yoga routine. I was doing some for a while, for several months, I've been doing Dao Yin, which is kind of like Taoist yoga. And there are smaller, short routines that you can do, like, which is one of the reasons I like them. So I'd sort of substituted those for like a full yoga routine. Um, I seem deeply grounded right now. Well, good. Yeah, I feel much more grounded than I have been in the past week or so. And I think it has to do with not being bombarded by um, electronic news and interactions, all day long. And then, at the same time, compounded with not having my normal activities. So I'm trying to use my time. And it's not so much about being productive. Um, some days it is, some days it's not. And so, for those of you who are not working from home, who are just off or who are just sequestered right now, Some days you're going to be really motivated to do some things, to be creative, to learn something. And other days you're just going to not feel that way. You're just going to be about taking care of yourself, taking care of your family. And if that's all you get done that day, that's great. You know, I don't think there's a model for how this is going to be. Certain people are going to be just like, I've got all the time that I finally needed and be very motivated to move and do things, And I've got a second book that I'm supposed to be working on, but it's one of those projects that I can only work on in small bits here and there. Um, because it involves a lot of shamanic journey work, and I have to have time for my body and my emotional body especially to adjust, because what I'm doing with that has a deep effect, on how I feel. Uh, and today I had two journeys. One was very intense. I had a healing dismemberment journey, and for those of you who are not aware of what that is, I'm going to change positions here. I need a new chair. Um, is that occasionally in shamanic work you will have a journey and you'll go into the lower world. And if you don't know about shamanic journeys, you can find out about my book. A little marketing there. No, basic shamanic worldview summed up. 3 worlds: lower world, middle world, upper world. We right now are in the middle world. So the lower world is a place of the spirits of animals, plants, stones, places, ocean, mountain, Mother Earth, all of those things that you can think of. Very deep base energy, and I don't mean base as in bad. I mean base is what holds everything up. Strong, deep, comforting, kind of like a weighted blanket. You have the upper world, high vibration, lots of light, place of like ascended masters, angelic forms, deity forms, ancestors of yours who have evolved past the cycle of incarnation. So that sort of, I also think of the stars a lot, has to do with that. And then you have the middle world where we're kind of in between. Now there's an interesting feature about both the upper world and the lower world, and those two realms, no one can lie. They don't have to talk to you either. They don't have to answer your questions. But if they say something, it is generally the truth. Now, in the middle world, where we are, if you hadn't figured this out, you can lie. And so that's where it gets tricky. But I did, I guess, a middle world, and I don't know if it's well, I did a lower world and then a middle world. In the first one, in the lower world, I went to see my power animal, and I had a healing dismemberment, which is something that happens every so often. I started having those about over a decade ago, maybe like even 12, 13 years ago, when I started, or not long after I started with one of my teachers, and I would have these dreams. And in these dreams, I was being torn apart by an animal, and what set these apart from other dreams was that I would physically feel the pain of the tearing of the flesh in the dream, and then I would wake up and I would still feel it for about half a second. And I told my teacher about this, and she's like, "Oh, that's a real big deal. That's a big honor. That's a healing dismemberment." And I was like, "Really? It doesn't feel like a really big honor. It actually kind of hurts." So what I've learned to do is every so many months, or when I feel like I'm really way out of whack, like right now, like I have been this week, I will go on a journey to my power animal, and I'll ask for a healing dismemberment. Now, you can also get a healing dismemberment in the upper world from like an upper world teacher or a guide, but whoever you get one from, you want to have it be someone that you trust and that's in your group. So that was my first journey today, and Um, it didn't hurt. One of the reasons I do the shamanic journeying is because it doesn't hurt. If I wait and then I have it in a dream, it will hurt and I will wake up and it will not feel great in the moment. And I lose a night of sleep basically. So I try to stay on top of that. Now, during the journey, I was sobbing. And this was, in a good way. I mean, I was just crying, just because this is all the, tension and emotion and grief of what's going on that I've, you just kind of not been able to express or let go of. And that flowed. And one of the things that came out of it is like later on this evening when I actually logged on and I was chatting with a friend of mine, I we had a little exchange back and forth, and I actually started to laugh, like uncontrollably laugh, and I have not in a while, like in a long while, because of everything that's going on. So, that shows me, that allowing that to flow was really important. And I don't know why I'm telling you this, but well, I do. And then I did another journey, which was a bit more, I guess, what you'd call think of a fun journey, right? But there were some really beautiful things that came out of the dismemberment. But those are private sort of things. So with certain things with journeys, to talk about them in too much detail sort of disperses the power. So some things I'm going to keep to myself. Um, does anybody have any questions? I know we've got a few viewers before I go on. But anyway, this sort of turning within, which is sort of counterintuitive right now because we feel very cut off. And so I've been trying to reach out and be electronically tied to everybody. And, but that has had me tied to the whole news cycle. And been, it's been throwing my chi off. I was doing a little bit of singing during my streaming test run. I don't even remember what I was doing. And I've already deleted it because I was like, that was not supposed to go live. I was just testing out the streaming software. And I may not use that streaming software because it seemed overly complicated. And I couldn't figure out how to maximize the screen size because for what I want to do is to, I basically want to live stream some of my classes. Did I do the meditation for 444 last night? I did not. I actually have been, again, this is counterintuitive. I've been shying away from a lot of those group events and those group energy works. In part because, I do have like a group of people that I'm really close friends with that would, and generally for like the last decade, we've been getting together like every Tuesday night and, doing healing and shifting work for global events and different things. When this whole situation of COVID-19 came up and started, we sort of felt into it. And I was like, what do you think we should do? And we all had just this, like, we didn't want to do anything with it. We didn't want to touch it. We didn't want to interfere with it. And it was just the feeling that we got when we kind of looked into it was that this is coming, this is happening, there's a reason for this, you're not going to be able to do anything about it. At least on the scale that, people are thinking of it. You might be able to do something on your personal level and for your families, but yeah, this was coming, this was going to happen. And a lot of the events that I've seen have been geared towards outcome. Trying to force a particular type of outcome. So you said they do these in the afternoon. I mean, and if you like doing those things and if it's helpful for you to do them, then by all means do them. I've just been really pulled back from group working. And this is the case usually though, even when we are not having like quarantines going on. I'm very selective about, which groups I interact with. And part of the reason I'm very selective about which groups I interact with is because, that energy exchange that happens, I've had some really bad experience in my past of being in groups of energy practitioners that have not been, um, I guess you would call them of the light, or in integrity. I guess is this better way of putting it. They didn't have great integrity, and I had to do a lot of work to disentangle myself from a lot of those. So that's why I'm very selective. I'll go to my teacher's things. There's a few other people I might interact with on and do events. Like, this is the first year I didn't do a spring equinox drumming ceremony. I had one planned. I had one planned at a wellness center, but I canceled it. And that was before the hard and fast rules came down. Hey, no events, no gatherings more than such and such number. And it's the first year, and I can't really drum at home. It drives the dog insane. Uh, so I really miss going out and drumming with other folks and having those kind of circles. David Wilcox was teaching on love meditation, that everything that needs to happen. Okay, yeah. It's I go back and forth between, you know, wanting to stay positive, but also allowing, you know, the awfulness of it to be there and to express how awful that is. And that was part of my journey today, was like that deep grief that was just held in place, that was coming out. And it's really important that we not resist our grief. Um, and it doesn't have to be over something what we considered grief worthy. You know, it could be like, I can't go and see my friends, and I can't go here and do this, I can't go here and do that, and that's grief. We need to have perspective, and so we don't drown somebody else out who's actually lost a loved one in this time. But our grief and our disappointment matters, and I think it's important to acknowledge that and to allow ourselves to be sad. We don't have to do it publicly if you're uncomfortable with that. Like, I'm not going to get on the live stream ideally and just sob. I really hope not. So, yeah, I'm trying to turn in right now, because, which is counterintuitive. I know, because we're only one to get out. I mean, I take the dog for walks because he has to have his walks. I stay away from, good. 6 feet is too close, in my opinion. So I'm staying far away from people as much as possible. Um, and on the other hand, I'm also trying to put together a Dungeons and Dragons campaign via Discord and all, with a group of my, real life friends, because we can't get together. And we're still looking for a dungeon master. So if you all can find one for me and send them my way, please do so. We're all newbies, so we need someone who's very understanding. um, but yeah, I'm going back and forth between that drive to want to connect, and yet there's a lot. I'm realizing that I use my everyday routine to escape from, my feelings, to escape from um, different issues I've not quite tackled. And so there is, so much distraction going on. I don't think distraction is always a bad thing. Sometimes you need a break from whatever is going on within. Um, it's when it becomes a constant thing. And as I said, you have the big grief buildup. And so, like today, after that big, the sobbing during a journey, like my jaw is nowhere near as tense as it has been, which has all been stress you know, from being here in front of my computer, looking at the news and scrolling through my feed. So try what D20 Discord. Okay. I shall do that. Thank you. Um, Giving me tips. Um, so right now, I have a list of other journeys to take, and I'm trying to compile them. And I always have a list of journeys to take shamanically, and they always get, push back, push back, push back. And that has to do with, like I said, our routines. We get in our routines and we can be disconnected. And, you know, part of me doing full things of yoga is one, to take some of the tension out of my body. But it's also because I have the time now. I used to do yoga all the time, as well as Tai Chi and Qigong. Um, but then when I started swimming about a decade ago, it just got, to be too much to do swimming, Tai Chi, yoga. By the end of the day, I was like, I'm tired. So now that I can't go swim, I'm like, well, this is a good time to pick up yoga again, and delve into that. And plus, I was, like I said, holding tension in certain areas of my body, partially because I was on the computer too much. I'm here. This is not the most ideal setup, ergonomically speaking. So, someone asked, can healing happen just emotionally, or does there have to be a mental understanding about what it's about? That's a very good question. I don't know that I have the answer to that. Um, I do know that mental understanding alone is not enough. Because if that was the case, I would be just like so. I'm like, I totally get it. And I'm like, oh, yes, that's where this came from. Oh, yes, that's why I feel like this. But there's, the difference between knowing and knowing. Um, so there's a word called gnosis, Gnosis. And that's sort of a deeper knowing. It's not just, it's different from knowledge. It's almost visceral. It's like knowing it within every fiber of your being. And so, when I do healing work with people, and I do like energy anatomy with them, and I'm tracing stuff. There'll be stuff in the mental body, which is very much more abstract. The emotional body is closer in. Then you have the etheric, which is like right around here. Sometimes you can even see it. And then, this physical, kind of like nesting dolls. And I feel like once you cleared the emotions, a lot of times the mental understanding is a lot easier to follow, if that makes sense. Because you can understand something, but still be spinning your wheels. Um, it's like with anxiety. You can know that whatever you're going on about is probably not the case, but as long as you're trapped in that feeling state, it's really hard to let go of. So I would try to, it's nice when you have that piece of understanding that goes with it, but I would also, really focus on an emotional healing. I think, most of our energy is expended trying to just like get through our own blocks, get through our own inner resistance. And a lot of that's mental, but just as much of that is emotional. And if you've ever had a depressive episode or, a lot of anxiety or panic attacks, you know what I'm talking about, where it's just the onslaught of emotion is just so intense and powerful. And so I'm more focused on emotion. Um, and that's partially because I've always been particularly sensitive to emotion. Um, I think mental understanding, that's more cognitive behavior, that's more clinical. And, I feel like there's benefits to that. I don't know if that really answers your question or not, but I really, emotional healing, people get hung up on like physical healing. And, that's great when that happens. It's really spectacular and ooh, ah, I mean, you get the bells and whistles. And Don't get me wrong, I love that too when that happens. Like, "Oh, my leg doesn't hurt anymore," or, "Oh, suddenly I can move like this and it's fine." And, mm, just like the physical sensations that people get sometimes when we work is, really intriguing to me. But, um, what I feel like is the most long lasting is when people really do, like, heal on that deep emotional level. Um, because, a lot of times you don't really even know how much weight you're carrying until it's gone. So, that's a great question. Thanks, Pat. So, getting ready, unless anybody else, any other burning questions, I'm going to probably wrap this up, make some tea, and take a hot salt bath because I need it. So, thanks for joining me. Um, this was probably a little longer than I intended to be speaking, but I'm glad I hopped on and figured this out. So, hopefully, I'll be scheduling a Qigong live stream soon. Let's see. Someone, Abby Norma. I love your name, Abby Norma. I had what seemed like an emotional release the other night, but besides splitting laughter for no apparent reason, I wanted to talk myself out of it because it wasn't grief or something heavy. No, no, not, that's the whole thing. Okay, so not every emotional release or emotional healing is going to show up as like sobbing, crying, breaking down, and just like, or screaming and letting anger out. Sometimes it is going to be that just eruption of joy and laughter. In fact, you know, if I got to choose, that's the one I would choose. But again, it's sort of like, do you want to color with all the crowns and the box, or just one, or just one? So if you want to be able to make interesting pictures, you need all the colors in the box. And so that's kind of how I look at the emotions. Thanks. All right. Well, thanks for sharing, guys. All right, until next time, I'm going to see if I can figure out how to schedule this, and hopefully, the next live stream video will work and not have such choppiness to it. All right, so until next time, peace and blessings, live long and prosper.